Hello and welcome to the Swan Song Project Podcast. My name is Ben Buddy Slack. I'm the founder of the Swan Song Project and the host of this podcast. The Swan Song Project is a charity based here in Leeds in England, and we help people who are approaching the end of their lives or who are dealing with bereavement to write and record an original song. We believe in celebrating lives, making memories and leaving legacies. If you'd like to find out more about the charity, you can check out our website, which is swansongproject.co.uk. The podcast features songwriters. Each episode I have a different songwriter on. I ask them to share with us one of their songs. I ask them for a songwriting tip, and I also ask them for a song that's meaningful to them in some way related to bereavement. This episode features Sean Cooney of the Young Uns. It's a fantastic, brilliant conversation. Sean's a really interesting guy with some fantastic songs. I think you're really going to like it. If you do, please like, share and subscribe. We're really going to hope to build the podcast up again now. It's been a while since the last ones we've done. I'm very excited to be back. We've got some great guests lined up for you. Without further ado, enjoy Sean Cooney on the Swan Song Project Podcast. Okay, today I'm here with Sean Cooney from the Young Uns. Thanks for joining me, Sean.
Hey, Ben, nice to see you. No, thanks very much for having me.
Yeah, you're very welcome. We look forward to speaking to you. So anyone listening, this is the first Swan Song Project podcast in quite a long time. You can always tell I'm a bit nervous about it. So I apologize in advance if some of the questions are a bit slower than usual, but I'm sure it'll be fine. Sean's music is fascinating, so I'm looking forward to speaking to him about it some more. For anyone new to the podcast, we always do this in 3 sections. So first, I'm going to ask Sean for one of his songs. We're going to have a listen to that, and then we're going to talk about how he wrote it. In section 2, I'll ask Sean for a songwriting tip. And in section 3, I'll ask Sean for a song that's meaningful to him in some way relating to bereavement, and we'll have a chat about that. So I'll hand it over to you, Sean, if you'd like to introduce your song for us, please.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. The song I've chosen is 3 Dads Walking. And it's a song that I wrote about a year and a half ago now, and it's off an album we released this year called Tiny Notes, and many of the songs on the album have come at the request of individual people. So that we said earlier on before we started recording about how the Swan Song Project and my songwriting, there's a bit of a kind of link there in the fact that we're telling real life human stories. And how it came about was we were, for about 10 years we've hosted residential singing weekends all over the UK, and we have about a couple of hundred people every year coming in different parts of the country, and we host a weekend of singing and teaching harmonies and doing little workshops, some of them related to songwriting, and having mystery guests and going for a walk. And it's a lovely kind of community event. And at the end of one of these workshops, I was doing a talk about writing songs about real people and what it's like, and how I do it. And a guy who we've known for many years, a guy called Neil Eyre, he came over to me at the end and said, "Oh, well, I want to give you this." And it was a business card, and it said 3 Dads Walking, and he pointed to the man in the middle and said, "That's my brother." And I'd heard about the 3 dads. Many of your listeners, I'm sure, will have as well. The 3 dads are Andy, Mike, and Tim, and they each found each other in the depths of despair, really, because they were each united in the shared grief of each losing a daughter to suicide in recent years. And they decided that they needed to do something about it. They needed to talk about it, and they had no idea when it happened to them that suicide's the biggest killer of young people in the country. And they decided that because they're all kind of men of a certain age and they're not very fit, what could they do? And they said, "Oh, well, we'll go for a walk." So they decided to walk from in between their houses, basically from where Andy lives in Cumbria to down where Mike lives in Manchester, and across to where Tim lives in Norfolk. 300 miles, and they set off in October of 2021, and hoping to raise a little bit of money for Papyrus, the charity for the prevention of young suicide, but mainly just to kind of raise awareness and talk about it and encourage other people, and men in particular, to talk about mental health and the impacts, the life-changing impact of suicide. And I think so many people just took them to their hearts, and everywhere they went on this walk, people would just come and find them and talk to them. Often these people were coming out and talking about the bereavement of suicide with a stranger for the very first time. There's something so engaging and honest about the dads, and I followed this this walk with great interest. The dads had like lovely coverage on the media from the BBC and other people as well. And so when Andy's brother Neil came over to me with the card saying, "Oh, I'd love it if you could write a song about my brother and the three dads," I already had the idea or the wish that I'd love to write a song for them anyway. So it was kind of like the kind of the seal of approval, really. And so that was the kind of the germ of the idea, really. I mean, what would you like me to kind of talk more about it, or what do you think?
Well, let's have a listen to it now. So so people can hear the song if they've not heard it before, and then we'll have a bit of a chat about how you wrote it and a few other things about it. So this is the Young Ones with Three Dads Walking.
My dad's boots are old and worn, my dad's face is tired and drawn, but my dad's feet will meet the dawn, my dad's walking on. My dad's cheeks are red and raw, my dad's legs are bruised and sore, but my dad's feet can take some more, my dad's walking on. From Lakeland Hill to Eastern Fen, 300 miles and back again, we will walk and talk like men. Three dads walking on. My dad's world was torn in two, no words can hold the pain he knew, but there was one thing he could do, so my dad's walking on. My dad speaks of all his pain, so other dads might do the same. My dad will not be ashamed, my dad's walking on. From Lakeland Hill to Eastern Fen, 300 miles and back again, we will walk and talk like men. Three dads walking on. My dad's holding all the while a picture from a simpler time, a daughter with an endless smile. My dad's walking on. Three birds singing in the dell. If he had known, if he could tell, if he'd have caught her as she fell. My dad's walking on. From Lakeland Hill to Eastern Fen, 300 miles and back again, we will cry and cry like men. Three dads walking on. There's a storm high on Crossfell, deep within the whirring swell. There's a time for love to dwell, my dad's walking on. The morning sun will melt the snow, the mountain rise, the river flow, and there are miles and miles to go, my dad's walking on. From Lakeland Hill to Eastern Fen, 300 miles and back again, we will walk and talk like men. Three dads walking on. From Lakeland Hill to Eastern Fen, 300 miles and back again, we will walk and talk like men. Three dads walking on. Three dads walking on. Three dads walking on.
Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, you've done me. Thank
I'm leaking again. Give me all.
That was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Bloody fantastic, man. What a thing.
Okay, brilliant. So that was Three Dads Walking by the Young'uns. Yeah, it's an absolutely beautiful song, Sean. It's really, really powerful. And I mean, when I first saw that video, that was the first song of yours that I heard. And obviously it really resonated in lots of ways with me. But the singing it in front of them there, what was that like? And was that the first time you'd sung it for them?
Yeah, well, thank you for your lovely words about the song. Yeah, it was a really, really special moment, and that day was the first time we'd met them, and we went to meet them on. But by this point, they were on their second walk in September of 22, and they were walking between the 4 parliaments of the UK with a petition to the government, which is almost on the verge of being successful to put suicide prevention on the school curriculum. And they were walking through Cumbria, they were walking through the Lake District, and we went to meet them. And as is always the case, on every day the dads walk, they're joined by different people from that part of the world who've experienced the loss of suicide. And so there was this lovely kind of group of people walking, and we walked with them for a couple of hours and stopped to do a little chat with them, and then also to sing that song to them, which was just so incredibly moving. And it wasn't the first time they'd heard the song, because when I was writing the song, and I'd finished it and I'd sent it to them. Now that was quite a different way of doing it, really, because usually when I write songs about real people, more often than not, it takes me a long time. I want to invest as much time and energy and thought into it as possible, and usually I get it to a position where I'm happy with it, and then I take it to Mike and David, the other 2 members of the Young'uns, and we work out an arrangement, and we practice it, and we record it, and we make sure it's as perfect as we can get it to be, and then we make the move of approaching the people in question, like the dad saying, "We've written a song about you. I hope this sits okay with you, and if you want to use it in any way." But I was aware that the dads were walking, and they needed as much help as they could in terms of publicity and things, and I wanted to get the song to them whilst they were walking, which kind of threw us into a bit of a kind of a rushed situation, really. So we got the song, we'd arranged it, and but we hadn't really kind of bedded it in, and we made a very rough recording of it. Which, I mean, we have different opinions in the group of what's rough and what's not, I suppose. But anyway, this rough recording I had, and I was just determined I needed to get it to the dads before they set off on this walk. So I did. I sent it to them. I didn't tell Mike and David that I'd done this, because they were like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" But I was determined. So I sent it to Andy of the dads, and he heard it and was really moved by it, and sent it to the other dads. And the next thing we knew was a couple of days later, I had a text on my phone at like 6:30 in the morning from someone saying, "I've just heard your voice on BBC Breakfast Telly. What's going on there?" And the dads had sent that very rough recording to Alison Freeman, who's the journalist they work with really closely, and she'd put it on a big piece on BBC Breakfast. And so that was lovely. But when I was explaining this to David, he said, "Oh, it's not that really rough recording, is it?" I said, "Oh, no, it's not, David. Don't worry." So there's I suppose that's a kind of funny story about a serious subject, really. And I think that kind of sense of kind of finding light in dark times and dark situations is something that the dads are very good at. You walk with the dads for a day, you do have a bit of a laugh as well. You've got to they say, even in the depths of despair, that there's always light, or there's always a bit of humor or a bit of a laugh. They're always taking the mick out of each other, how Mike's not very good at navigating, and how Andy likes a drink and all this. And so I in a way I kind of wanted to reflect that in the song, the kind of camaraderie of it, really. I mean, I've written lots of songs over recent years about kind of very kind of serious emotional subjects, and many of them have kind of musically and rhythmically, I suppose, and emotionally have kind of sound like sad songs, I suppose. But this one, it's about three men going on a walk. I wanted it to be upbeat in some way, and to kind of capture the playfulness of the dads and the great kind of bond that holds them together. And so in the way it kind of goes lyrically, with like it's kind of my dad this, my dad that, my dad's boots are old and worn. One kind of draft of writing it was like me kind of imagining almost like an argument of like kids in a playground. Oh, my dad's better than your dad. Oh, my dad could do this. My dad can do that. And whether or not any of that's kind of still in there when you hear it, I don't know. But in my mind, I kind of think back to writing the song in early stages and trying to get that kind of the warmth and the fun of kind of just describing what your dad's like,
Yeah.
But that was a very like troubling thing to me, in the way that the song is almost like written as if they're, as if the character who was singing the song is they're singing about their dad. My dad's this, my dad's that, and I was really kind of careful to explain to the guys that I wasn't trying to be the voice of the daughters, Sophie, Beth, and Emily. I didn't want to kind of try and speak for them. It's such a thing that kind of worries and troubles me a lot when I'm writing these songs about real people whose story belongs to them and who tell their story in their own way. It's something that kind of that I do think about a lot, and often approach these songs with great trepidation, but having that kind of invitation from Andy's brother to write the song was really the kind of push that I needed to begin work on it.
Yeah, it's kind of like a balance, isn't it, between of people are generally very honoured that you're celebrating their story in a song, but then it's a big responsibility to try and make sure you get it right for them. I was very interested in your choice of perspective on it, and that's really interesting. And it does make sense there. You can kind of hear that my dad's playground kind of talk.
Yeah.
How much do you speak to them? So did you get in touch with them before you started writing it, or did you, after that invitation from the brother, just start writing it? And I guess, how do you do your research? Do you speak to them, or do you just research online and find things out?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I tend to never speak to the people at all until I'm in a position where I think I've got something that's going to work, and partly that's to do with this kind of ongoing sense of, is this the right thing to do? Is this the right thing to do? I'm really not sure. I'm going to read everything I can around these people and their story. I'm going to watch every news clip. I'm going to read every book I can get hold of related to the subject until I'm in a position where I think, oh yeah, I can do this. And in other senses, the reason is that I've started so many songs about different people, and I've never finished them, because I've got to the point where I thought, well, no, I can't. I'm not in a position myself, emotionally or creatively, to be able to do this story justice, or I don't think it's the right time for someone like me to tell this story or something like that. So that's why I never kind of at the beginning say, right, I'd really like to write a song about you, because then I kind of worry that I won't be able to do it.
Yeah.
But I think in the case of the dads, they would have been really engaged with the process. If I had said to them, I really want to write this song, is that okay? Can I come and talk to you? They would have thrown their arms around me. I'm sure they would have. And I'm sure I kind of knew that myself, but it's just the way I like to work, I suppose. And it took many, many months to try and figure out how the song was going to take shape. And many times in those months I thought, well, maybe this isn't going to work. So interestingly though, I made a program for BBC Radio 4 a couple of years ago about writing songs about real people, and Lizzie Foster, who's a producer who I work with a lot at the BBC, said, well, why don't we do it differently? Why that can be the program? Why don't we find someone and you approach them beforehand and say, right, I'd really like to write a song about you. Is that okay? Can you help? Do you want to be involved? What do you think about that? And then we'll go where you write the song and then present it back to them. And we did that with a song that's ended up on our new album, a song about Richard Moore from Northern Ireland, who was blinded as a kid during the Troubles, and who went on to find the soldier who had fired the bullet that blinded him as a kid and forgave him and became his friend. It's an unbelievable story. And in that instance, it was approaching Richard in advance and saying, I'd really like to write this song about you. Is that okay? And I mean, it was a good subject to pick because I knew kind of deep down, in the same way with the dads, that he would have absolutely loved the opportunity to do that. And he tells his story so beautifully, and he has done for 30 years. But even though I'd kind of got into it and chatted to him at length and recorded it, and throughout the process of then going away and writing the song, it was just like any other song in terms of the process. I could have like picked up the phone and rang him up at any time and said, oh, can I just ask you one more question about this? Or what were the colour of your dad's eyes and that? But it didn't, it didn't feel like appropriate, so yeah, that's how it goes.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I really like the Richard Moore song as well. And there's a couple of videos on YouTube. I'll put some of the links in the description where you go so there's one where you meet Richard and you speak to him, and there's one with the dads as well, isn't there, where you spend a bit of time walking with them. And it's really nice to then meet the real person and as you kind of say there, you kind of get a sense of what they're like and how they react to the songs. And there's a lot of good humour in both of them, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. That was another reason for picking Richard, because I know he's funny and he's a musician as well. And it would be, and he'd be really up for the experience. It's interesting though, with we're so privileged to being able to write these songs and then to develop these relationships with the people who inspired them. But still, part of me thinks that we talked about a person being okay with the song and really pleased that you've written the song and how it and a positive effect on them. But I often kind of think, well, what about kind of further down the line that that my song is kind of now kind of tied on the back of this person's story, and I hope that that's kind of in some ways like a legacy for that person and that story, and maybe further down the line, the person concerned wants to distance themselves from the telling of their story and doesn't want to be reminded of it, or will take an entirely different perspective, and whereas a song is out there now, it's it's in the world, it's people know about it, and that kind of troubles me a little bit as well.
Yeah, it's a good point. I hadn't thought of it from that perspective. But it's a beautiful way for people's stories to live on and be told. And there's one of the lines that I really like in the Three Dads one of my dad speaks of all his pain, so other dads might do the same. And that that importance of sharing difficult things, and how it encourages other people to feel like they can do that. And something I get a lot with Swan Song, when I go and talk about Swan Song, people come up to me and then it's like, I think because they know that you've had these conversations, it's like a license to then I can go and talk to this person about my bereavement. Do you get much of that at your gigs when you play songs like this?
Yeah, we do. I mean, I don't think there's been a single time when we've sang the Three Dads and we've gone out at the end to meet people. I don't think there's been a single time when we haven't had someone come in and saying, that means a lot to me because I lost this person or my friend lost this person. And then people, as you say, you're kind of creating that space in which people feel comfortable to share something with you. And it's just so beautiful how the dads do that on the walk. I mean, the day we walk with them in the video there, there was one man who kind of turned up on the outside of the group whilst we were conducting the interview, and he waited and he waited and he waited, and he came over and he said, I've been driving around the Lake District for 2 days trying to find you, and then he started talking about his loss, and he said it was the first time he talked about it, and he was just so he felt so free to do that in the presence of these ordinary blokes, you know, because he'd seen them do it so honestly and beautifully, and was determined to find them. In terms of providing like a space for people to kind of come and share the stories, that kind of idea developed into something really quite beautiful that we were able to do this year on the album, which is called Tiny Notes. The album was made where I live in Sheffield, and Andy Bell, who's the producer and a great friend, when we were telling Andy that many of the songs have come kind of at the request of people, you know, like Neil Airy asking for the song about his brother. He said, well, why don't you sort of encourage that on the tour? And so we found an old suitcase and we got loads of like blank luggage tags printed out. And at every gig we went to on the tour, we asked people if they wanted to leave us a little kind of tiny note, an idea for a song, or maybe just a memory or something. And we got about 250 of these incredible notes. And some of them were, you know, extremely detailed, and some of them were about like local heroes, local history. Many of them were about mental health and on the theme of the three dads. And lots of them were anonymous. And I think for a lot of people, it was very cathartic. It was like lighting a candle in a way. So it was such a beautiful thing to be able to let people do.
Yeah, it's a really beautiful idea. That was one thing I was going to ask you, was how many stories do you have, and like, is the next album going to be lots of stories of other people? And are you ever worried about running out of finding the stories that you want to tell? I guess not, if you got 250 of them there to go out.
I'm certainly not worried about running out of things, but I do kind of, feel what the next direction is really. I mean, but this song, the songs from a suitcase, I think is just it's been such a powerful thing, and at the minute we're working on a sort of like radio program, exploring it, you know, meeting some of the people who left the notes, following up, because some of them are really like cryptic as well. Some of them are like 20 questions before we get married, and then just a phone number. So I've been having great fun like the last couple of weeks, like ringing these numbers and finding out. And others were funny, and some were angry and political, and so it's a whole world of stuff in there. But I was on the phone to one of the producers who were talking to at the BBC about doing this as a thing, and I said to them, well, you know, I'm kind of a little bit part of me worries that this has become kind of my niche to kind of write songs about real people, and maybe I should be sort of, you know, kind of looking in a different sort of direction. He said, well, that's the whole, you've got the whole world there in that suitcase. That's life, you know. It's every different aspect of it. It's not a kind of niche of writing songs about real people. Real people are all around us and are so varied and rich, and so that kind of put my mind at ease a bit.
yeah. That's what I was going to ask you then. Is so yeah, I guess how much that's the way I phrase this, but yeah, I guess. So is that the way you're going to keep going for a while? And I guess how long have you been doing songs where a lot of it's about real people? And I guess how did you get into doing that? And yeah, how much of your work is, you know, fictional, and how much of it is based on real people?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I mean, it feels like I've kind of evolved into the position, really. I mean, I've been writing songs for over 20 years, and the first songs I wrote were, well, there was a point 20 years ago when all three of us sort of discovered folk song, and particularly kind of unaccompanied folk song and sea shanties and the songs of the Northeast. And I went through a phase where I was just trying to breathe in and eat up as many kind of traditional songs, old songs as possible. And I got a repertoire of about 150 songs. And I just like kind of learn them and devour them. And partly thinking that, well, these songs are traditional. These are the ones that have survived for hundreds of years. I need to preserve them. I need to protect them. And that was very like, I mean, I must have been like extremely like bad company. But it was kind of a mission of like, oh, I don't need to ever write songs. It'd be ridiculous for me to write songs because these are the songs that I want. These songs have taught me so much about the world, about love, about life, about loss, about war, about peace, about everything. And so for a couple of years, I was determined that I was going to be a traditional singer and I'd only sing traditional songs. But then you kind of sort of evolve, I suppose, and we were kind of immersed in the folk club scene of the Northeast, and we'd be singing these songs, and we'd be performing in pubs and at little local festivals and so on. And then at one point, I moved to Hartlepool, and I lived right by the sea in the old part of Hartlepool, which is just filled with history. And I realised that there weren't many, although we had many local songs or traditional songs in the Northeast, there weren't many of them about Hartlepool. And so then I kind of decided, well, this is my new kind of mission. I'm gonna like document the history and the changing scenes of Hartlepool through songs, and I'll write them in a kind of traditional style because that's what I know. And so that then became our new sort of thing. And for many years we were known as a kind of group who sang about Hartlepool and who sang about Stockton-on-Tees, and we'd sing all these songs at kind of sea shanty festivals all across Europe, and we'd sing about Hartlepool, and we'd and then from then that kind of evolved into thinking, well, hang on, these songs that I've loved so much and I've learned so much from, these songs that are 200 years old, at the time they were written, they were obviously telling the stories of the day, folk song always did that historically. It gave people a voice. It shared information, and it just felt like a natural kind of change to think, well, hang on, now I've got this like experience and this access to this huge kind of jukebox of traditional song and melody and style and emotion. It just seems obvious now to try and write songs about real inspirational people today. That was quite a long answer.
Yeah, no, really good though. Really interesting. Did the lyric writing come naturally to you? If at the start you were mainly singing traditional songs, when you started writing your own lyrics, did that come fairly naturally?
Yeah, I think so, and I think I've always kind of done that as a kid as well. I remember like at like primary school, kind of like changing the words of pop songs to make them all about football, really. So I think I'd always kind of wanted to have fun with words, and I was always kind of writing as a kid or thinking about little kind of mini songs and stuff. So that kind of felt very natural. What still feels very unnatural to me is understanding music, and even though I'm in a kind of harmony group, I'm not. I really struggle with harmony. I'm lucky that I've got these two amazing musicians on either side of me who kind of take my ideas, and I'll come to them. I'll spend months and months kind of working on songs, and then I'll kind of take a batch of them to Mike and David, and then I'll sing one of them, but with my heart and soul, and then David will say, "Well, that's exactly the same tune as this other one," and I won't have realised, and then so I'll be sent away to kind of to change it or to start again or something. So that's it's a really good kind of relationship we've kind of developed in that sense.
And so is that how it normally works? You write the lyrics and the main melody, and then you take to them and you just do the harmony arrangements together.
Yeah. Or in some cases take it to them, and then David helps get the melody sorted or changes it a little bit, or in a couple of cases just completely revamped it. So it's an interesting point, that is particularly because I think I'm very much like in terms of writing, I'm very much an introvert in that sense. I really kind of go into my own world of research and thought and emotion and so much time and so many different redraftings and reworkings until I get myself in a position where I can even think about like singing a little bit to the two men I've kind of shared most of the last 20 years with. It's a bizarre thing. Whereas now I kind of, as the young ones, we all kind of do different things now as well. And I've kind of got into, writing a little bit for other people and writing for a bit of theatre as well. And that's a completely different sort of situation, because I now find myself like having these deep conversations that I'd only ever before had in my own head about certain ideas for songs with other people, which is a real kind of, I mean, it's a brilliant challenge to share that really, or to think so deeply about certain things that might inspire songs with other people.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm completely the same. It took me a long time to get. I used to be like, I'd spend ages writing lyrics by myself, and I hated writing lyrics to anybody else. I'd love making music with other people, but the lyrics, I was like, I just couldn't.
Yeah,
and I still find it hard with my own stuff to write lyrics with anyone else. But obviously through Swan Song, I got kind of used to sharing words with people. Something about music was fine to make music with people, but writing words with people felt very different.
Right. Yeah.
I don't quite know why. When you're writing, so do you do lyrics first and then put a tune to that? And when you come up with your tune, do you just sing, or do you work on like a piano or anything like that? Obviously lots of songs are unaccompanied. Some do have a bit of piano and things in, don't they? But
I kind of like, it seems to be when I'm writing on a page, there's always something in my head. It's never tends to be just straight lyrics without any kind of idea of the basis of a melody. Sometimes it's bit of guitar. I'm kind of fishing around on the guitar for something, but more often than not now it's in my head, and it's with a pen. And I do work best kind of. I find that I work best kind of in public spaces, really, like in coffee shops or on buses or on trains or on the move. I think there's something about movement and like kinetic energy and stuff with that. I find it quite creative, just like when I'm on my own in the car, like driving down the motorway and stuff, and often kind of have to stop to kind of like make a recording or something before I forget it.
Yeah. The other question I was going to ask you is how much, this might be an unconscious thing, but how much the stories influence the musical feel of the song. So you mentioned a bit with Three Dads of it, it's got a kind of an anthemic feel to it, hasn't it? And like kind of, which again feels very fitting. But is that something you think about when you get the story? You think this one wants to be like a slower one, a sad one, anything like that? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something that thankfully has developed really well with the three of us and how we arrange things. So like in the early days, when I'd kind of find like a traditional song or something, and I'd take it to the lads, and their focus was on like, if it was fun to sing, if it was good to sing, and with not much kind of thought at the time. We were so like young, and folk music was so like way and kind of big and happy, and there was not much kind of sense of like the arrangements reflecting any of the lyrics really. Whereas now we're very much kind of like, well, what can we do? This line is really important. What can we do to the? Can we do anything with the melody there, or can an interesting harmony really kind of do something subtle and important with this one particular word in a song, or something like that? So yeah, no, I definitely, definitely always conscious of that. I think as well, certainly with the with the Three Dads, as I said before, like a lot of the kind of heavier emotional stuff I've written over recent years, I get so immersed in it, and I like for months and months I'm trying to figure out how to tell this story, and when it's so kind of affecting. I kind of almost like, it almost feels like piffy to think, oh well we need a chorus,
Yeah.
And I kind of like I'll write these big things that have like like for example the Richard Moore song, that's I think it's like 8 verses. In one draft it was like 14 verses or something, And then, like, you know, a couple of months into the process, I'm thinking, hang on, it's a folk song. Should it not have a chorus? and it doesn't in the end. And I think we kind of got around the problem of it with a nice kind of musical arrangement. But with the dads, it felt like it needed a chorus, as you say, because I wanted it to be anthemic, and so I am kind of conscious now of like going back to basics and thinking, oh, hang on, I'm a folk singer here. Folk songs tend to have choruses, you know, and in many ways, you know, maybe this will be my section 2. My kind of tip would be to sort of go back to basics in the sense of like a way of starting a folk song, you know, with someone's name, you know, like there's a song I wrote called "Be the Man," which is a song that's filled with emotion, really, and it means a lot to us because of the impact we know that it's had on a lot of people who've heard it. Basically, the story of "Be the Man" is it's the story of Matt Ogston, who lost his partner of 13 years to suicide, and they were due to get married. His partner was called Naz, Dr. Nazim Mahmood. He was a surgeon, and he was from a religious family. And when his family found out that he was gay, and the aftermath of all of that led him to taking his own life. And Matt has been so inspirational in the things he's done in the years since he lost Naz, in sharing his story and trying to make a difference to other people in those situations. And so it took about a year of just thinking about that story before I decided, well, I'm going to try and write a song for Matt Ogston. And it was kind of months and months of thinking, well, how is it possibly going to do it? And then one day I remember exactly where I was. I was kind of in a traffic jam outside the Broadfield pub in Sheffield, and I was just thinking, and I had like a sea shanty in my head, and I just kind of started singing like I almost kind of went back to basics with, oh, well, what's his name? Matthew Ogston is my name, and Matthew Ogston is my name. And it was a kind of shanty tune that kind of mellowed and turned into something else. But I think in that sense, part of me was thinking, oh, why didn't I do this a year ago? Why didn't I just start writing something? Why didn't I write that down? And I don't know, maybe if I had done, maybe I wouldn't have had that year of kind of thought and reflection and breathing space and time and research as well. But part of me sometimes just kind of kicks myself and thinks, well, you should just do it. Just put some time aside and just start actually putting the pen on the paper and seeing what happens. So getting back to that kind of idea of a songwriting tip, in many ways it would be like, let it all out. or take a, you know, as a folk singer, a folk musician, it's, you know, we're so lucky that we've got this whole, like, as I described before, almost like a jukebox of melodies, tunes, ideas, forms, techniques, and one of them is simply to start a folk song with a person's name. You know, my name is this, and you know, I live here, I was born in this year. And you know, once you've done that and it's there, you've started something. It might take you in a different direction.
Yeah, that's really good. Good advice. And it is such an interesting thing. It's particularly when you've got so much content. So like you've got so many stories and like you know so much about something, but then how you find the way of communicating that in a song, is really interesting. And so is your tip there to kind of just go at it and just write as much as you can?
I think so. I'm undecided now, because before we started the call, my tip was going to be read as much as possible and listen to as much as possible, and everything you can do like around a subject. So, for example, I wrote a theatre show called The Ballad of Johnny Longstaff several years ago, and it was about this working class hero from Stockton-on-Tees, where I was born, who 100 years ago was born into poverty, and his life kind of touched upon some incredible moments of working class history in the 1930s. He was on hunger marches. He fought fascists on the streets of London. He took part in mass trespasses. He lied about his age and went to fight fascism in the Spanish Civil War. His world was just incredible, and his story so beautiful. But I wanted to tell his story. I wanted to read every book that he read, and luckily in his memoirs, which has still never been published, he referenced all these books that he read. He mentioned songs that he used to listen to, and when he was on the Hunger March, and the men were walking along, they would make up songs, often to the familiar tunes like John Brown's Body, John Brown's Body, da, 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 da. And so it just became obvious that for that part of his life, I'd use that tune, but I'd use new words that would tell his story. So, so I think, as much kind of reading around a subject is really important. But then other times it's just as we said, it's just helpful to just get it down, because I think that was the case with the Johnny story. Was I did all this reading, and then one day I just thought, I've just got to do it, and I just wrote down, my name is John Longstaff, in Stockton I was born, and that that's the first line of the show.
Went from there, and because sometimes I guess when you're working on something like that, you're taking in the direct stuff about it. So like you're reading the books about the subject, or you're speaking to people about it, and you're getting all the stuff which is directly feeding in. But you also getting other stuff, like what I find a lot is like I might have an idea for a song that I want to do, and then I'm not sure how to do it, and then I'll hear a song on the radio, or a song I've not heard in years, and there's just something about the way that song's been done that triggers like, oh, maybe I could use a similar device here. Maybe that's. But I guess it's hard to know. Do you have a sense of when is the right time to go with a song? So you mentioned a bit with the Three Dads one of like you wanted to get it done when they were walking, so you kind of had a bit of a time scale anyway. Yeah. Whereas with some of the other ones, if there's no time scale and you're working on them, do you have a sense of like when you've got it, when you've kind of found that structure or that tune or whatever it is that's making it work, and if you do have that sense, what's that like? How do you know when you're going somewhere with it? Yeah, no, it's a difficult one. Yeah, because like deadlines are brilliant for me. They can really kind of sort me out with what I have to get done. So that the Dads thing, this Johnny Longstaff theatre show thing, we knew we were gonna be doing it in 9 months' time from this meeting that we had, and sitting in this meeting with this guy who was arranging the tour for us, and we were talking about the story. I was sitting there thinking, I've only written 3 songs. So I had like 9 months to write the rest of it, and it ended up being 17 songs. So that was a real, like, a beautiful challenge. So no, absolutely. But yeah, but breathing time with songs and ideas is great as well. I mean, there's, if you've written something and then you kind of put it aside for a couple of months and then you find it again, it might look or feel completely different to what it did before. Often, sometimes when I think something's clicked, I'm almost like a bit too kind of self-congratulatory, and then I think, oh yeah, that's brilliant, I've got a great idea, that's brilliant. I kind of like enjoy that feeling, and then like actually forget to kind of develop it, because that almost feels like the harder work. Now I've got the idea, the thing's there, I've got the tune. It's just I know that I need to like read a couple of books to really understand what I'm going to say with this next verse or something. I don't know, maybe I think I do tend to overthink. Yeah, no, that's really, I'm the same. That's the part I love the most is when you first got the idea and you first start seeing it come together. You find that first little lyric or something. Yeah, that's all been really interesting, Sean.
Maureen went peacefully, and she went in my arms. I could speak to her, but it wasn't enough. There were still things I wanted to say to her. But the end product, even now I can't believe it. I think it's wonderful, and it encapsulates everything of what I wanted it to do. And if I'm feeling down, I can play that, and hopefully it'll lift me up. And if I'm feeling high, let's think about the good times.
If you would like to help more people like John write songs in memory of loved ones, please donate to the Swan Song Project today. Cool, so we've covered section 2 there. So we'll go into section 3 now, shall we? So this is where I always ask my guests for a song that's meaningful to them in some way relating to bereavement. Sometimes it's a song which is about bereavement. Sometimes it's a song which has a personal connection for people. And yeah, I think it's one of the things that, again, I've really loved with Swan Song is being able to share that with people of just how important songs can be in terms of us dealing with bereavement and dealing with any difficult time. So what song have you chosen for us here, Sean?
I've chosen The Last of the Widows by Jez Lowe.
Yeah, it's a beautiful song. So I'll put the link in the description here. So if you're not familiar with the song, you want to pause us here. You can follow that link, listen to the song, come back, and Sean's going to tell us a little bit about why you chose it. So yeah, why did you choose this particular song?
Yeah, well, Jez Lowe's one of my first and sort of enduring songwriting heroes. He's from the northeast. He's from Easington, and he's kind of from a family, like a mining family, a mining community. And when I first started discovering folk songs as a teenager and hearing people sing in their own accents in the back room of pubs with a beer in the hand, singing about things and places that I knew, and wondering why on earth I'd never known this at school. Why on earth people my age didn't engage with this, or didn't know that it was there, didn't know that you could sing a song about where you came from in your own accent without an instrument. It was just a real revelation. But Jez had been kind of doing that since like the late 70s, and he's still doing it now. And he's very much given a voice to kind of mining communities, but he writes. He's such a clever and witty and succinct songwriter in many ways. But there's a great kind of depth of lyrical kind of understanding and beauty in there. And this song is just, in many ways, it's one of the saddest songs I know, but it's also just so beautiful. I'd never tire of listening to it. In fact, I don't think I've even actually heard Jez do it live. I've heard other people do it. Other people do it in folk clubs. People standing up and singing it. It's so affecting. And basically, it's the story of a mining disaster in 1951 in Easington, where Jez was born. He must have been born about that time, or maybe a few years later, and it was known as the Duckbill Seam disaster, and about 83 miners were killed that day, and what an incredible impact it must have had on that small community. I don't think there was anyone in the place who wasn't affected in some way by it. And I think Jez wrote the song kind of in the 80s, and he was, I don't know if it was, if he's imagined the character, or if it is actually on the passing of the last widow. So basically, it's the time where the last of the widows of these 83 men, the last one who's still alive to remember, finally passes away, and he imagines the reuniting of this couple, and through it, all the kind of scenes are played out of the day in 1951 with the pit disaster, the world's media, the 80 widows, the 80 women waiting, like holding vigil for days, waiting for news at the top of the mine. It's just so beautiful, and I think about it quite a lot. And I think that listening to it again just now before I came on the call, I can kind of hear a lot of, I can see a lot of things in there that I see kind of echoes of in my own work, I suppose, and just the lovely kind of device of sort of repetition in folk songs, so no, it's really special to me.
It's a really beautiful song, really powerful, and yeah, I guess particularly for you having that kind of personal connection to him and his songwriting being such an influence on you. But it's a really good example of what we were talking about just then, of the, you know, having a theme that you want to express in a song and a particular story, and then finding that mechanism for doing it, like that Last Widow way of framing the story is fascinating. And I think it's another really good example. I mean, the lyrics are just stunning, aren't they? It's really, really beautiful writing. And again, what you were talking about doing lots of research and knowing lots about it, like I've always known it as iceberg theory. So, you know, like the idea of like what you're putting out is the tip of the iceberg, but what you like know about it and what's kind of really in it is the whole thing. So there's lots of the lines in there where it tells you so much more, but in such a succinct line. It's a real amazing piece of songwriting, isn't it?
Beautiful, yeah. No, lovely.
Yeah, and I bet it means so much to you know, other people who are connected to those to the people who died in that disaster.
Yeah, that always kind of interests me, that to how much of, because I think folk music for a lot of people in the country is very much like an unknown thing, really. I mean, that was part of our thoughts upon discovering it as teenagers, was that, oh, why didn't we know about this? How long? What, people have been singing these songs for years in this pub, and they're singing in Teesside accents, and they're singing about the North Yorkshire Moors, and because people in the North East are so proud to be from the North East, and I just, in particularly in our part of the North East, Teesside and Middlesbrough, there aren't any people aren't aware of many songs, whereas up the road in Newcastle, you know, people have got the Blade and Races, and in many ways kind of folk song is kind of a little bit in the fabric of the place, but certainly not as much as in Scotland and in Ireland. So that interests me really, to see how kind of in that community, how much Jez's songs have actually kind of seeped into the kind of collective memory of the place. I hope they have.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing to do to you know, for history to be told through song, isn't it? And I hope it can continue as well. I hope and it's great there's, you know, people like yourselves who are doing this and telling people's stories in songs, and hopefully they do live on for one of the things that I've got a really early memory of like when Springsteen did the Seeger Sessions album. I don't know if you know that, where he did a lot of the old Pete Seeger songs, when he does a song called Mrs. McGrath, which is an old Irish anti-war song. Yeah. And one of the live shows of it, where he introduces it and he says this song, I can't remember if it's 200 years old maybe, and he says, but you know, it's still as pertinent today as it was when it was written. And I remember hearing that first time when I was probably a teenager when the album came out, and just thinking, like, that's just amazing that songs could live that long and still feel so relevant. And yeah, it's a great thing to contribute in turn, keeping people's stories alive in such a beautiful way. So yeah, thank you for your time, Sean. I've really enjoyed the conversation with you.
Thank you, Ben. It's been lovely talking to you, and thanks for your lovely comments about the songs and our music. And I'm looking forward to listening to a lot more of it. It's another great thing about this podcast is I get guests on, and I can listen to a good amount in the stuff preparing for the interviews, but then I'm looking forward to listening to a lot more of this over the time. For people listening, can find you on all the social media and stuff like that. The Young Uns, that's right. Yeah, theyounguns.co.uk is the website. All the dates on there, and then Spotify and Facebook and Twitter and everything.
It's Young Uns, isn't it? UNS.
That's it's the Young apostrophe UNS. It's you know, the name that gets worse with every passing year, but it's it's what we've got. Yeah, I'll put all the links in the descriptions as well. The new album's called Tiny Notes, isn't it? Which has got all the songs we've been talking about today. It's got Three Dads on it. It's got Richard Moore, and the title track itself is particularly powerful as well. And you've got some tour dates coming up. You're coming to Leeds, aren't you, in December? We're doing the old Woolen in Farsley in December, and it is December the 17th, Sunday night. So that'll be really nice. Yeah, that's like a Christmas show. Brilliant. Good stuff. Well, thank you much for your time, Sean, and thank you everyone for tuning in. We're back with another episode soon.